Hello, thanks for tuning in. And today we're playing Nerus. In this video, we'll continue with Aloy's story. Aloy's got up from bed early that morning. He had dreamed about the strange descendant being on the road with some unknown people. They talked so loudly that it had caused him to wake up and had been unable to fall back asleep. Dawn had already broken and the church was open, but most of the monks were still in bed. Aloy was making his way to the south when he saw something peculiar out of the corner of his eye. He got some movement by the church's entrance in a flash of blue. He couldn't be a monk, it wasn't the shade of their habits. He walked into the building just in time to catch the door into the nave closing. Aloy thought about calling out, but his instincts advised him against it. Cautiously, he opened the door and entered the nave. His eyes became heavy. A yellow light penetrated the building through a tall stained glass window, blurring his vision. Underneath it lay an altar, and to his right there was a small wooden door. Four pairs of pews lined the path to the altar. How strange, this didn't look right at all. From the wooden door near the altar came an old nun with scarce strands of white hair on her head. She gasped with surprise when she saw the monk. "Oh, going to pray already?" "No, but I suppose I might as well since I'm already here. I do wonder if Nock would even mind if I skip my morning prayers. He would probably make me pay for it at night. Yes, I'd apologize if I scared you." "Don't worry." The nun invited Aloy to come closer. They kneeled side by side on a pew, closed their eyes and prayed. As he did so, the monk felt as if the woman next to him was watching him. Once he finished, he looked at her to check, but she was concentrating on her prayers, not moving a little bit. Perhaps out of the lethargy that invaded him when he entered the nave, Aloy stared at her, so the woman noticed it when she finished. "Is something bothering you, my dear?" "There's, right, I've got a good eye for these things." She gave him a welcoming smile. The monk showed no reaction, but he did feel like he could use some outside advice. His human side was unsure how to deal with the feelings afflicting him. Would it be best to relinquish control to the beast? And so he sought guidance. "I have this friend who's been troubled by this one problem. Lately I've been thinking I want to help him. It must be a complicated problem. It was bothering you." "Yes. And he has, how can I say it?" Aloy rested his head on his hands as he measured his next words. However, the prying lady interrupted him. "Is he a close friend?" I didn't begin to describe it. Aloy wasn't sure he'd even call Nock his lover. The notion didn't cross his mind, but his affection for him was special nonetheless. It made him feel like he had a place in the world. Aloy used to wonder if there was a reason he didn't process emotions the same way as other people, and that he sympathized more with the tragic fates of monsters and the glory of heroes rather with their holiness. Was it too conceited to think it was all to meet someone like Nock? Yes, but it's something he's been trying to accomplish for a long time. I'm afraid he might lose part of himself in the process. I think he might be ultimately unhappy with what he's doing so. What would happen to Nock once his mission was complete in this world in ruins? Will his human heart be destroyed? Will it slowly fade away once he returns through the void? Will Aloy even get to see him again? This was a story the monk had read so many times he never imagined he found himself in it, let alone in this way. He didn't want Nock to change, which meant he didn't want the world to change. The old woman nodded solemnly. So you don't know if to support him or tell him to stop, correct? Correct. Tell me, do you think your friend is doing good? That the result will be worth what potential harm might befall him? I sympathize with his cause, but I can't say I can justify it, no. Still, I don't believe I could get him to stop if I tried. Are you certain? He said this is troubling him, yes? Perhaps all he needed someone to present him an alternative, a way out. Alois wasn't convinced it would be that simple, but it would be worth a try. All he needed was to think of the correct way to find this alternative. The God would not outright give up his duty. The thousands of years he had dedicated towards it were proof of that. Alois thanked the woman and left with a silence. As he was drying himself, the strangeness of it all started dawning on him. The neighbor was so much smaller than it actually was, it didn't look right, and that dizziness. And if the church had just opened, he would have found the lady in charge of doing that inside instead of that other old woman. He hurried up and getting dressed to return to the church only to find the doors closed and the servant lady unlocking them. Nothing added up. Alois concluded it was a dream he had confused with reality. Regardless, that other encounter had given him an idea of how to proceed. Not touch his fishing rod, and upon the slightest sign of resistance pulled it back from the water. He caught a very round fish, its body almost completely covered in human eyes. The guide let out a triumphant cackle before shoving the dangling creature in front of Alois' face. This is a good one. Do not eat the fish itself. Its taste is foul. The eyes are the good part. And look at this. Not God's one of the creature's eyes. Alois expected at least some blood or a similar kind of substance to come out, but instead another eye quickly revealing the empty socket. Not casually once in the eye, letting out a satisfied grunt. Care to try it? Thank you. The monk took what remained of the eye and ate it. It was crunchier than expected and tasted like marshmallows. This would make it for a decent afternoon snack. What do you think? What will you name it? It looks a bit tense. Eagle-eyed as usual, dear Alois. Yes, this creature's body inflates and his eyes open in response to stress. It reminds me of a blowfish. Alois' gaze was drawn to three sages standing further down the riverbank. One was very small, the other tall and lanky, and the third reminded him of a Varro, except larger. The three were having a conversation, but the monk didn't understand their garbled speech. And a flash of inspiration, Knock took out three eyes from the fish and tossed them in their direction. One of their eyes got stuck in the sword sage's hook. They could only imagine its expression when it wheeled the eye out of the water, but the way it jumped and threw it away made it clear itself was quite scared. As for its name, Eyefish is a bit obvious. How about the nearsighted fish, since it reacts to stress? Presumably, it won't open its eyes until something gets close, correct? Satisfying enough, although it would be more fitting if it could squint. Knock's hands phased through the fish, and suddenly at each of its eyes started squinting. After letting Alois admire his handiwork, he released it back to the stream. They had been doing this little exercise of fishing strange creatures and having Alois name them for a while now. The monk found it very entertaining, but he was starting to feel tired, and there was still a topic he wished to discuss, so he proposed they stop for the night. Changing topics, I have been thinking about your duty, Knock. He had been thinking about it quite often, dear Alois. Yes, well, what else can I do in the face of such revelation? But I want to know your opinion, my lord. What do you think Samuel wants? After a brief pause, Knock dropped his fishing rod and placed a hand on Alois' cheek, looking him in the eye. what do we have here? Is it concern that I detect? Speak up. Alois told Knock about what had been in his mind lately regarding his mission, the possibility Knock would change after completing it. By the end of it, I got outside and pulled the mug into a hood, that long tail wrapping around his legs as well. Alois started realizing just how tired he was. You're right, Alois. I can feel humanity pulsing through me when I think of the fate that awaits you, and that feeling would fade with time were I to return to the void. But, my dear Alois, I have good news. Beings like you and I, we can have anything we want. All you need to do is make it happen. We are not bound by the laws of men. If you want me to stay as I am, then just make it so. Make it so. All you need to do is ensure that the plan to free Samel does not succeed, correct? When put like that, it did sound simple. Knox's operation seemed vast and intimidating, but that was only because it was such a risky endeavor that they had to take precautions to succeed. Broken holes in such precarious hole wouldn't prove difficult, it would be enough to sink the ship. Alois just needed to do so before it arrived at its destination. How fortunate for you that we don't know when no one knows well, and that the plan you will have plenty of time. Indeed, I give this idea some thought, my lord. Knock grabbed Alois by the shoulders and lifted his forehead. You are a smart, good boy, dear Alois. I certainly will reach a satisfying conclusion. Problem: how to stop the destruction of Samel's world. Solution: have not cancel the operation. If futile, assuming not did this, Nano still holds the other half, the gatekeepers of the human group, and that the operation leadership. Attempting to persuade him to stop is out of the question. Solution 2: have not make the abbots interfere. If futile, due to the protocol, the abbot's descendant must be present during communications between the abbot and his deity. Not revealing what he knows might put him in a vulnerable position, and this course of action will invite descendant intervention, which could escalate to another cataclysm level conflict with the shapeshifters. While the objective would technically be fulfilled, Alois would rather preserve Earth as it currently is. Solution 3: have Alois inform the abbots about it. If futile, the abbots are already aware of the gatekeepers and have groups dedicated to hunting them. They don't see the need for further action. Moreover, even if Alois told them all the details about their plan, the abbots might distrust him. His life could be put in jeopardy. Solution 4: hunt the gatekeepers. If futile, there are many members constantly on the move across the globe. With not being unable to leave the island without drawing descendants' attention, and Alois being unprepared for such a mission, this course of action is unviable at the time. Solution 5: destroy the main teleporter. If futile, only a handful of descendants can handle the teleporters safely. Many years were spent researching and preparing to prepare and use the teleporter, but how to disarm it completely is an enigma. The residual energy still in it could lead to another cataclysm level scenario if not handled properly. Solution 6: the abbots seem to be the only ones with the power and in the right position to solve the problem. The issue is their lack of action. However, this is the case because of the position, not the people. If they could be replaced by actors that are more proactive and or trusting of Alois, they could be a solution. Most of the abbots are old. Could they retire soon? If a new abbot takes over only upon the death of the last one. Moreover, only the successors for non-contempt searches have been selected so far. Even if all the abbots are replaced before the gatekeepers complete their operation, it doesn't guarantee a consensus that further action is needed against them. What is this proposal? Is Enrique, our vote successor, interested in further action against the gatekeepers? The lack of successors is a problem. Why not consolidate power in him by having him succeed Avalo, disposal of necessary abbots? They are all old men and meet at one of the main abbeys once a year, making them easier targets than the gatekeepers. The only obstacle would be the abbey security. When Aubrey finished reading through the handwritten letters, he looked up to the two men across the lightless fire and sighed. You two are made one for the other, aren't you? But, well, I can't say I feel bad for the abbots. I confess I wasn't convinced when Nock said we should show you this. You're with the gatekeepers, no? I expected another reaction. This was governed by certain principles. If I may be blunt, I don't think this plan of yours will change anything, even if it succeeds. So if you insist on going through with this, then I won't stop you. What puzzles me is what Nock wants from me. In the face of me being unable to leave this island, I want to ask you to protect Alois once he announces his plan. You don't need to be complicit in performing the killing. Just see that no harm befalls him. Aubrey's eyes became bitter as he fell back to the papers in his hands. He whispered something to himself and nodded. Very well, I can promise you as much. I assume this means that you won't be carrying out these crimes here then. That left only one other location where our lawyers could carry out the murders. Alois and Nock were sitting on the couch in some dark, airy study. Nock had one arm wrapped around the monk's shoulders, and as his antenna illuminated the book Alois was reading for him. The story revolved around some romance plot between a werewolf and a human. It integrated some inaccuracies about wolf packs that betrayed that it had been written by before the cataclysm. Alois must have found it in the archives and gone through the trouble restoring it for physical use. It wasn't what the god would call a prime example of what human literature could be like, but he respected what the monk knew what he liked. They were taking a break from reading when Nock asked a question. Have you spoken with the abbot, dear Alois? The monk perked up. Yes, the preparations are complete. So initially I will move to Samir's church. What a shame that our encounters must be cut short so soon. And for 4 years, it is not much time, but the time we have spent together is even shorter. I wasn't counting on you becoming needed, my lord. Rest assured I have already made arrangements to visit every once in a while. The god pulled Alois closer and began nibbling his nape. First, you made me hungry, and then you deprived me of my sustenance. I see, Alois, you seek to increase my craving. Not as likely, but if that makes you happy, you are free to think it's the case, my lord. What a not inconsiderate monk you have grown into. I know I shall fill you with real eggs before you leave. You shall give birth to my offspring, so that you may raise it alone. As if he had read that thought, and a fair irritation Nock threw his weight on the monk and began wrestling him. It was a shameful one-sided match which ended with the god lying on top of his monk, rubbing up against his hair. Alois was having some trouble breathing, but not being so affectionate pleased Alois. The feeling was mutual. He also would miss their nightly adventures greatly. Once he had enough Nock helped Alois sit straight. I believe it is time you receive a gift. Nock brought his finger to Alois' throat, and at the tip of it materialized a large black gem. The darkness it reflected was so deep that it seemed like it was devouring all light that came in contact with it. A wolf-shaped emblem grew around it, silver chains sprouting from on top of it and closing into a loop around the monk's neck. Alois took the chain and watched the emblem dangle. Oh, is it alright for me to have this, my lord? Of course, you deserve it. It will allow us to talk and interact a little, no matter where you are. Nothing physical, but it is a means of communication nonetheless. I don't know what to say, my lord. There was still much about the Voidborns that Alois didn't know, such as that they knew of more effective, less ambiguous means of communication than words. That reminds me that I have not been using this as much as you deserve. The monk was just raising his eyes from the pendant when Nox snuck one hand under his habit. Nox started phasing into his body, causing Alois to open his eyes wide as a necklace slipped from his fingers. A whistle of excitement ran through his body. What is this? In the void, all of us men together like this is our primary method of communication. But your body is not used to it, so it is overwhelming, no? Does it feel good? Alois was too busy being in a daze to respond. The bone poking from under his pants was satisfactory enough answer, however. Not leaned closer and sank a second hand inside his body. It is a saying we are wearing this human visage, for it is not resistant enough to survive complete overlap. But this comes with advances. I could change your form to any way I wanted, alter your bodily functions, your perception, even your memory. As I mentioned, humans are very flexible. Suddenly, a mischievous look crept its way into the goddess's eyes. On second thought, if the overlap is brief. Now threw himself on top of the monk again, only this time Alois sank nearly completely into his body. He then jumped away, leaving his panting worshipper spread on the couch. Ha! It worked. You never cease to impress, my lord. Now, shall we get back to reading? Alois and Obley were guided by Lacusse, the Abbey's descendant, to their new cell. As they unpacked their belongings, Alois pondered over his next step. Although Noxus must have the freedom to transfer to Submitted Church's main abbey, they weren't allowed in any other places outside Nox Church or main, barring a few exceptions. Alois' first reason to pick Submitted Abbey over Noxus had been that it would let him commit his crime sooner. They were gathered here in 4 years by now, which is 6 for Nox Abbey. But after the idea came up, not missing a few other unique advantages that Alois could attain here if he played his cards right. Alois was the son of a dynasty that used to have a hold on Fire's church alike to Aval's favorite Nox's church. At least until most of his family was murdered in some squabble between the abbots. The interesting part of this was that one of Alois' surviving relatives still worked for Submitted Church as part of security. He was also in charge of coaching those that aspired to become vampires or werewolves, since he belonged to the first group himself. Alois would sign up to train under him to know him better and determine if he could be useful. And because he wanted to become a werewolf, of course. Pick up the pace, fatty. Why are you so red on the face? If you can't handle this, then you won't even be able to transform, you hear me? You'll fucking die if you try. Remigio continued shouting at Alois as he ran up the hill to the abbey. The monk was already tired from running down, hungry from skipping separate way enough his habit was sticking to his skin. He had to remove his mask to start the sweat from pulling around his eyes. Once they reached the abbey, the vampire had him run down again, but Alois collapsed midway through. At night before bed, Alois would hide under his blankets and close his eyes as he clutched his pendant. He would have vivid visions not identical to a dream if not for him still being awake. He would have thought turning into a werewolf would be such a torturous process. The guy calculates he learned as he leaned against one of the nearby pillars. Still, I can't complain about getting safe. I suppose it might help with the task at hand. And one over Migio. He's very strict, but as of late he's been hurling less abuse at me. I believe he uses that bad temper of his to filter out months he doesn't consider to be dedicated enough. Do you believe he will fold and become more approachable if you prove to him how persistent you are? He could be so optimistic, Alois. Alois would start every day with exercise at Alois' meal. It became challenging having to juggle his werewolf training with him learning art so he could be useful at the scriptorium. He also missed coffee dearly, but it was a good thing that he was getting used to life as a mid-church. It would be difficult to plan out a murder at a location he was unfamiliar with. He had also started looking into plant buds in his free time. Some of the herbs in the infirmary could prove useful if he learned more about them. Eventually, Alois was able to survive a full afternoon of Remigio's training, which earned him praise from the vampire for the first time. But the monk wouldn't have the breakthrough he was looking for until about a year after he started his training. Remigio and Alois sat down on the grass after running some laps between the town and the abbey. They might intend to make use of that moment of respite. The vampire's expression looked tired as usual, weighed down by his 200 years of life. But he had an especially deep frown that day. You've improved a lot since you arrived, but you're still spoiling that belly. Are you eating exactly how I instructed you to? I'm sorry, Master, but my appetite often gets the best of me. In actuality, Alois was hesitant to lose weight because Nog had a liking for praising his chubby disposition. Well, I guess it doesn't matter too much as long as you don't clog her arteries. You're like, never mind. The clouds in Alois' mind started turning. Like, what do you think of someone, Master? The vampire grimaced, but upon meeting the monk's eyes, his expression softened. Old dusty memories about my family. I never stopped to think about it, but with you being so old. Just say how it is. I outlived most of them. The training to become a vampire is different. If you can't come to terms with outliving all the people you love, then you won't make it. It's that simple. It's just that you remind me of my nephew just now. He never managed to lose weight, no matter how much I nagged him about it. Do you have children of your own? Nah, that never interested me. Despite his words, Remigio's face had turned even more somber. So how's your family nowadays, Master? The vampire glared at him. Enough about me, what about you? I don't know anything about you, come to think of it. Is that a knock monk thing? Oh, not really. I don't have much of a family to speak of. Someone went and set our house on fire when we were kids. I remember having a brother, the both of us made out of there alive. But I don't know what became of him after. He was just a baby when it happened. I believe the lady that found us and sent me to orphans adopted him because of that. Maybe I should ask Knock about that later. I keep forgetting too. I separate you in the process, what an ass. I know what's in it. Raising one child is already hard enough, let alone two. This is fucking weird. Excuse me? Nothing. Say, how old are you again? 23 years old, Master. The vampire frowned, his expression grew tenser by the moment. He wasn't angry at the monk, but at himself for entertaining his convenient fantasy, however. While he spoke, his voice steady. To tell you the truth, Master, I already knew who you were before I arrived here. Don't get me wrong, I really wanted to become a werewolf. But I also wanted to get to know you. Then, More than 20 years ago, my father was an abbot of Fire Church, yes. You knew him well, didn't you? When Mitchell's lips twisted into a wide smile, he burst out laughing. He tore the grass between his fingers and smashed it against the soil time and time again. Bitterness and hope, everything mixed, came gushing out like poison from his throat. Now all Lois needed was to direct it to the right place. This has to be a joke. Why, after so many years, did you? Because I need help. What? Lois looked down the grass, putting up a slight frown. Back then I was just a child, so I didn't understand what happened. I don't know what they must have said about it. I imagine the news went far with an abbot dying now. Yes, but all that the newspapers said was that it was an accident. I had to ask around for more details, and they only could see it because I was a relative. It wasn't an accident. That day my father was going to meet with these hunters. Alois recalled the facts as Nock had described them to him. Back then his father had taken the entire family on a trip through the countryside. Although he was meant to travel alone to inspect a few hunter outposts, he had taken the whole family with him to saw Alois the worker the role he'd be performing in the future. The assassins, not knowing that the rest of his family was with him, was the only reason Alois' brother had made it out alive, although their mother wasn't so lucky. Alois' father was expecting a group of hunters that night, but who arrived instead were assassins in disguise. After killing him, they set the house on fire. Alois escaped with his brother in the wilderness. Hunters who found him later and sent Alois to the orphanage while she adopted his baby brother. The rest of the story wouldn't pluck Remigio's heartstrings the right way, so Alois embellished the facts. The memories of that night tormented him since, but despite this, he came out on top of the Avaro. Saw his potential. He was recruited as a monk for Knox Church. Although things were looking up for him, he still wanted to know the truth behind his family's demise. One day he had a flash of inspiration. Who would know the truth but the Lord of Darkness, who dwells in everything that has to do with secrets and that which is forgotten? And so Alois snuck out of the church and into the hollow mountain where he met Nock. Now God listened to his story and pleaded for the truth which not then provided. Always at the injustice a worshipper of his and fire both had suffered at the hands of humans meant to guide them, no less not offer them a chance to right the wrongs of the past. He gave him the information on the abbots, their habits and weaknesses, and told him where to locate a surviving relative and his only potential ally. It's been hard living with this. Until recently I didn't understand the truth, but that night I heard those men speak and realized they were after my father. I feel I hid my identity. Let the orphanage give me a new name and have lived always looking over my shoulder. It feels like I can never trust anyone, so it's difficult to even make friends. Except because, according to the story here in Opal I agreed on, they were supposed to have become friends sometime before moving to the Abbey. Frank is the only one I feel I can open up to. Alright, enough. The vampire shook his head. This really is a joke. All this time I have been racking my brains trying to figure out the truth behind that fire. If I was being paranoid, or if they were hiding something. And then you come around my long lost great southern nephew, and tell me not only I was right to suspect them, but that you want revenge. I must be losing my fucking mind, finally. I'm afraid this is very real. You know better than anyone how much they took away from us. Yet they get to live in peace, drowning in blessings. It's just as it's right. Please, Master, Uncle, I need your help. Remigio pounded the dirt as laughter took over him again. Only couldn't understand that, but he wasn't fazed nonetheless. Without moving an inch, he waited until the vampire poured everything out. Demetrio must have thought about this encounter in the past, imagined all the possible ways it could go. And at some point he must have lost faith in it. I think that a forgotten hope will be rewarded in the most terrifying ways. About 2 years later, Alois completed his werewolf training and went on one of his visits to Knox Church with the pretext of helping with a project that had caught his eye while exchanging letters. Traveling between Matariki Island and Hallow Mountain every few months made evident how different the sea was between those zones. In Hallow Mountain, the stench of death and the flavor of salt would stick to someone far more insistently. In a place characterized by lack, this interested Alois. Did it have something to do with Nox's presence? Perhaps the voice was a bit like the sea, although the god had used that word to describe Semel's world in the past. Could it be that this was the surface of the ocean, or the void was a bottomless pit beyond where the light reached it? Then maybe the aeons lived in the sky, watching everything below was gone. Although Alois was meant to assist in a research project upon one of his old friends, ended up dragging him away from a drink and to discuss his new werewolf form. He seemed enchanted by it, which for once made Alois genuinely happy of having their attention. Oba had gone off to attend to some process of his own. He wouldn't reappear until it was time to return to his cell. Naturally, Alois went ahead and snuck into Hallow Mountain that same night. His anticipated reunion with Nock went as usual, with the god having planned a date only to succumb to his impulses and partaking in a holy ritual of worship. Right now I was well acquainted with these two's degeneracy. I could have made a bingo card out of everything I've seen. I didn't need more, so I often averted my eyes, peeking every once in a while to see if they were done. Nothing important would probably happen until after Nock got everything out of his system, but this time something had piqued my curiosity. My eyes were drawn to the scene, nevertheless motivated by perverse curiosity. No one decided against it. Until now, for the moment, I will wait until the arranged time to meet with Obi in a few nights. Obi, Nock, and Alois sat around the campfire, eating some snacks that the Senate had taken the trouble to prepare. There wasn't much left to say. With them being in contact thanks to Knox's necklace, he was up to date with everything the monks had been up to. This reunion was less of a tactical meeting and more of a little bonding exercise. Still Nock did have some news for them. How are your plans progressing? The abbats are meeting at Semel's church next year, yes? Remigio and I have come up with a couple of plans. I think we'll select the most versatile one and keep a couple of backups in case things spiral out of control. I'll try to let Brandis live, but not without ruining his career. That way his successor won't be able to take over immediately. Those documents you mentioned each the abbots keep will be very useful for that. Giorgio has a successor too now. Remember, so he might be a good target as well. We will see. Now I took a moment to eat a dog-shaped cookie. I must say, I wonder if your intervention wasn't predetermined by Alois. Owen looked up from his food to the god. Now when I was playing for the gatekeepers to make their move about a month after you make yours. Sadly, your time frame is very tight. What are the details? We will transport the key to Plata around that time. Nomino has already configured it, so he just needs to finish repairs and activate the teleporter. I assume that safe sister that's always following well around will be there too. Well, that's the canine, but it's human. Yes. Well, that doesn't change much for me. I imagine, but I thought I'd let you know. I threw a lizard-shaped cookie into his mouth and munched. He had monopolized the bag of amber-shaped cookies. Aloy stared at the flickering fire. Knock, how do you feel about helping Aloys? Is it not technically betrayal? Oh, you children submit with your paranoia. We Voidborn do not sabotage. We try our best to make the spoils go to the victor. Why aren't you bringing your promise? Not at all. My promise is to bring Samel home, yes. This will happen regardless of if the gatekeepers succeed or not. Darkness is that which is eternal. A world like this will flicker out eventually. The Samel being free is but an eventuality. The point of contention is the time we know. But for Voidborns and Samel, time is frivolous. No matter how deep, how lasting, and eternal beings' wounds might be, there is always a chance to mend them. Not glance at Aloys. It's all you who have existed for so little, to whom time matters, especially for mortals. I suppose you're right, but even if... Never mind. Do you want a sandwich? It was a wonderful night. Despite the top of the conversation, Aloys was feeling content with eating alongside other people for the first time. Back in the orphanage, he would hear this was what eating with a fairy was like. The monk never caught himself interested in the thought, but he had to admit it was nice. All humans and monsters needed company, it would seem. A family. Perhaps the difference between them was what they defined as such. Even among humans, there was still a debate topic. This was still a debated topic. There were still many definitions circulating, but many decided to discard them and create their own. Perhaps that would be a good time. That would be a good thing to imitate, and celebrate and bask in the warmth of those dear to him, well, as long as it could last. Wildlife and playback. This is a story I've seen a couple of times, although never this twisted. It includes Monk and his fake god, But it is interesting that Obley was there to witness their story. Did he empathize with Aloys, or did he feel insulted by this bastardization of his story? Another feeling of being forced to watch someone desecrate your tragedy very well. I wouldn't blame him for holding ill will towards Aloys, although suppose he did end up cooperating as he promised. Yes, it's similar to, oh? I knew it. It's coming from here. I say as I grab the egg and proceed to examine it. My mind is still reeling from watching the records, but my body springs into action. I fail to notice anything unusual, so I start browsing through its menus instead. You are not broken, are you? What is that sound I often hear after a record finishes playing? Failure to parse statement. I'm about to roll my eyes, but I notice something unusual as I scroll up the backlog. There are entries for things that I didn't say, think, or experience through any of the records. I blink and furrow my eyebrows as the backlog scrolls down on its own accord before displaying a new message. Well, look who finally wised up. Are you slow in the head, bud? Took you long enough. But I have time to wonder if I'm delirious. The machine hurls further insults at me. You hit your head? Don't you remember your gold pal pyre? Reading that name is enough to put a grimace in my face. It hasn't appeared on any record so far, and yet it elicits this reaction. My instincts warn me not to interact with this thing, but I will hold off judgment for the time being. You seem confused, Pyre starts going again. I followed you here, remember, but you shut the door on my face, so I'm reaching out through any other means I have. I made you are that thing that was chasing me. Oh yes, what fun we would have, what fun we would be having had I gotten my claws on you. Is wasn't all these records not dull to you? Come out and play already. No, thank you. Your entry is about Aloy's story. Let me believe you were looking for some discussion, not to message your ad as if you know me. But if you don't lay it off with the threats and insults, I'll just close the backlog and go back to annoy you. You can't annoy me forever. You do know you will need to get out of here once you run out of record here, yes? And after this set of records, I'll be made go through more of them. And that's all I'm telling you. Although, who knows, if you keep me around, I might slip up and give you more valuable information, I look around me, just in case I catch a glimpse of this pirate person hiding somewhere in this red sea, but to no avail. I can only assume they are not an AI or that at least they possess a body just from our previous encounter. But they are not in here or in any of the nearby record storage rooms. Who are you? Why were you chasing me? You think I'm going to tell you that you think I'm going to tell you that just because you asked, dumbass? Well, it was worth a try. Anyway, Poirot proceeds. You mentioned something about discussing lawyers, huh? Well then, what are your ideas? It's not fair if I do all the talking, no? I'm still wary of this presence, but I consider getting them to have a normal conversation as a small victory. There is no doubt that there are malicious and that they don't intend to give up information, but I might glance something about their morals and my situation from talking to them. I also found when I see that the damn egg recorded this thought as part is reading the backlog. If I can't hide anything, that's all the more reason to exchange ideas, I suppose. I can't think of any reason to go through these records other than helping me recover my memories. So I've been seeing them through that lens. And what have you found out? After these last two groups of records, I realized all the stories so far follow the same beat, so to speak. Hopefully, Nerus' story is very simple when you break it down to its fundamentals. Two people meet, they bring change to each other's world. They wish to stay this way, but this is impeded by a third factor. In the end, they become unable to meet for a long time. Initially, I compared Alicia to Nerus, but now I realize that was a mistake. Her father, well, was more akin to Nerus when I consider his history with Body, if their relationship was a romantic one, down to the point where Vanessa's Body was unable to beat him again. Naga and Lois, as Pyro pointed out, are now in a similar conundrum. Of course, these comparisons aren't perfect, but they share a common thread nonetheless. If these records are related to my memories, I likely went through a similar situation. I'm either waiting for someone to return to me, or I'm trying to get back to someone. However, this does raise a new question. As if anticipating it, Pyro writes first. That's a nice endless tale you came up with, Smarty Pants, but slow down with the assumptions. If you are being shown these records to restore your memories, then why wouldn't they just sell you your own records? Instead, you've seen the perspective of, 5 people now? It doesn't make sense, does it? I fall silent. I'm hesitant to follow this line of reasons to its end, but I have to do it. I can't leave any possibility unexplored. I thought about that. I can think of 2 explanations. Oh, what could that be? If the impression Pyre knows where this is going. The first one is that I have already been shown my own records, but that it wasn't enough to restore my memory. The second one is that, well, my records are either inaccessible or they don't exist. Do you realize what it would mean to not have records? It's like you don't even exist. The carcass records everything, including our interactions right now. If there are no records about you, then you are a newborn. It's an unsettling possibility, so until proven otherwise, I choose to believe in the first explanation. Besides, since you seem to know me, now I have a good reason to think I didn't come into existence a short time ago. But are you sure? I might be prejudiced against your kind, you know? I roll my eyes and let go of the egg. productive as that conversation might have been, part is exhausting. I will continue watching the records and talk to them later if I feel inclined. An endless tale, huh? So, we're here. We're back at the time egg now. So we just completed Alois' story. At least so far. Was so far. Okay, this story here popped up now. It's Buddy, Alicia, and I forgot his name, but he's a cop that was on that island investigating the case. I think his name Bernardo. Anyway, he was a police officer on the island in charge of investigating the murders. So this is after they came back from the island after they got paid and came back from the island. So we know why Alois committed the murders, because it had something to do with him being able to prevent Samael from leaving the void, and as well as saving the world from being destroyed, as well as his own personal vendetta. He wanted to inflict revenge against the Abbots because it had something to do with his family being killed, because his father turned out was the Abbot of Fire, and his family got killed except for him and his younger brother. One of the hunters found him and took his younger brother in while he went to the orphanage, and that haunted him because of that he's not so trusting in people, so he was always to himself. So when he and Nock and Obley spent time together in a forest from a campfire, Alois felt like he was part of a family for the first time ever. Like he was part of something, and that he was actually enjoying time with others instead of always being by himself. So we know what Rel, who is Elisa's father, is doing. He's transporting Key to, I think, a transport that, anyway, he's transporting Key across the ocean to this place. I think it has something to do with a transporter and something like that. But at least his father is still alive, and apparently that's how we figure out how Alois knew about Elisa's father, because of what Nock told him, and the fact that he was going to a place called Plata. So this chapter here answers a lot of questions from chapter 1 about the characters and Elisa and Buddy's story, why they did what they did, and as we continue to the story, and Nerus will figure out even more answers and see what happens in a few days when Naruto makes his move to has nothing to do with a teleporter, but it's going to end up with the world being destroyed unless there's some way the characters in the game or Samael himself can stop it. So I'm gonna go ahead and play this story here with Buddy, Elisa, and Bernardo, I believe. Initializing playback. And he's left. Will that be all for today? Elisa grunted as he stood up, dusting off her gloves. It did little to shake off the grass and dirt sticking to the white fabric. She grabbed the large bag she had been tossing weeds into and tied it close. The nun that she was helping was almost done with her side of the garden. Can you help me bring over some stuff from the storehouse before you go home, Elisa? Can you do it yourself? Fine. Marty was a tall and robust woman, much stronger than her wrinkly skin and gray hairs would cause one to believe. Still, it didn't sit well with Elisa to let her work alone. She was at that age where she would need immediate attention, and she suffered a work accident to prevent permanent injuries at least. So having mastered healing magic, Elisa felt responsible to help her with manual labor. Are you sure you don't want me to push that? But Marta was stubborn. She insisted in transporting the push cart with the fertilizer, leaving Elisa with a much lighter box with some gardening tools. Don't you worry about it. So, any news from the bosses? Nothing significant. They still can't agree who the actual boss is anyway. Elisa hadn't mentioned being Smith's church when the murder took place. Buddy had decided that they make a exception and not tell anyone about the case. The news of the abbot's death quickly reached Earth Church, and from there word spread to town. But for such a sudden event, it had impacted Elisa's life much. The abbots were acting on behalf of the deity's wishes. Even with them gone, the Sevens will remain the guide of churches, although not without trauma, according to Marta. She hadn't given her any details, but there was some sort of dispute ongoing among the churches of Echelon. Elisa suspected they were accusing each other of being complicit in the murders. In that chaos was the Loyalist objective somehow. She often thought back to the werewolf, but still didn't feel any closer to grasping his intentions. Perhaps she was overthinking things, taking his parting words so too seriously. But she wanted to believe there was meaning to his words, because then perhaps a clue he had granted her would really lead her to well. Not to mention they were still unable to explain the presence that sea-silting descendant. There was still more to the story than they knew. Geez, slow down though. I guess I was worrying over nothing. Worrying? Why? Never mind. Elisa placed the toolbox down once they returned to the plot of land. She wiped the sweat off her forehead and placed her hands on her waist as she caught her breath. Marta crackled. I should be the one worried about you. Do you ever work out, Lisa? No follower earned to tell so easily. I've tried, but it never yielded good results. Do you sleep well? Eat well? Yes, of course. Lisa's appetite wasn't as big as Buddy's, but surely her portions weren't that small. Was that small, right? Are you going to keep working? I'll let the boys take over. I think I earned a nap. On the top of food, you should visit tomorrow, Alicia. Want me to cook something? Not at all. Pedro said he'd make some ice, so we'll be making ice cream. You should come get some. A small smile appeared in the young woman's face. I might just. It would be nice to bring Buddy and Bernardo along too. Buddy and Bernardo's bickering welcomed Alicia home. They were in the middle of a game of trousseau, which Bernardo had stopped to accuse Buddy of cheating. Alicia walked in just in time to witness the bearded vulture pinning Buddy to the chair with one leg while he inspected his sleeves. The crocodile laughed awkwardly, his eyes dancing between Bernardo's face and the claws digging in his pants. Bernardo's fingers intertwined with bodies, holding them in place. As he he slipped his hand under his leg, caressing the way down his scaly forearm. Lisa grimaced. Suddenly, just as the body's eyes met Elisa's, Bernardo raised an eyebrow and then frowned. Hey, what do we have here? When did you hide this many cards up here? The big vulture asked, bringing his face closer to the crocodile's to feel his breath hitting his beak. Or then he noticed Body's eyes gesturing Elisa's way. Oh, welcome home, Alicia. He let go of Body, hiding his hands behind his back and stepping away. He smiled warmly. The poor detective looked like he needed a while to catch his breath. Hello, I hope I didn't interrupt you or anything. Not at all. Martha, yes, how was he? She's alright. I swear Earth must have blessed her with longevity. She just doesn't stop. That's good. Did you buy the groceries? Yes. We already put them in a cabinet. Okay. By the way, have you ever tried ice cream? No, what is it? Me neither. It's like an ice cold cream they made by crushing ice and mixing it with some other stuff to add flavor. Martha said they'll be selling some at the church tomorrow. I think we should stop by. It's very tasty. Excellent idea. It's been a long while since I visited church too. Alright, well, I'll take a shower before I start cooking. Although Bernardo had planned to immediately look for a job once he arrived at the city, Bonnie had insisted that they deserve a break after the latest case and that they could live off Maggie's payment for a long time. Lisa had returned to her routine to reacclimate to her home. Between her trip and the case, it had been a long time since she was here. Even the nightmares had stopped after they left the island, as if they had been left behind there. Now Lisa didn't dream altogether. The nuns had arranged an array of tables and chairs in the church's largest yard, as well as in the balcony of the second floor for those willing to pay for the view. Alicia and company arrived. Martha received them and insisted they follow her to the balcony. You really were okay with eating in the yard, Martha? It's alright. Take it as a little thanks for always helping us out. Now pick a table. I'll bring you your ice cream soon. I must say the people in this church are very nice. Bernardo commented after they took their seats. They are, most of the time. Or maybe they are nice because I'm around. Most of my time, Mataraki was spent, well, keeping the peasants in check, so I didn't frequent the church. But, and you might have noticed this, the monks there mostly keep to themselves, or they avoid outsiders. It would be unfitting for a follower of Earth to treat their patients coldly, no? This, I guess, makes me a bad follower. Bernardo laughed and nodded. Very true. Is it often that they become violent? Oh no, goodness, I'm sorry, I forgot for a moment about that unpleasant encounter before you left the island. The culture around the Abbey is one of very deep devotion. This has made them superstitious, and they often see the influence of the seven where there isn't any. It's very different from here, I feel. Indeed, they were in an altered state with all those mysterious murders in the Abbey. That was all. They are usually very nice people, although different to the rest of the world. Barney was staring at the yard below them, as well as the city stretching almost as far as he could see. He was thinking about something, Alicia thought. In moments like that, she felt inclined to ask them about it. But sometimes the words wouldn't come out. Being out of a lack of drive or interest, she would turn her eyes away and keep the question for herself. Bernardo was never that timid. Are you thinking about something, Body? The crocodile checked the nun wasn't back yet before placing both hands on the table and leaning closer to the other two. I'm thinking about the money from the Abbey case. What about it? The crocodile leaned on the chair's recline. I can't remember the last time I traveled for pleasure. Elisa, well, you've only ever traveled for business, right? I'm thinking of making a trip, but I won't know where. I see. I take it you used to have vacation days. Nah, that's not it. Maybe crossed his arms. Before settling down, I used to travel with a buddy of mine. That's how we started our business, actually. We'd wander around, and every once in a while, we'd stumble upon a case and help solve it. How peculiar. Yes, it was an adventure. So, you want to go on a vacation? Elisa tried to rein the conversation back to the topic that interested her, but just as she did, Martha returned with a tray with 3 cups filled with ice cream. Here you go. Make sure you don't eat it too fast. Huh? This is a lot more elaborate than what you guys usually do. Right? Pedro read about this style of ice cream in a book about the old world and insisted he wanted to make some. Milkshake, I believe it's called. Might as well enjoy myself for now. I don't want to ruin the mood. Lisa stared quietly at Bonnie and Bernard as she enjoyed her milkshake. Some of the crocodile smile struck her strange. He had been making that face since Bernard moved in with them. She didn't understand it at all. Bonnie had been so skeptical about Bernard when he first met him, but at some point his opinion of the vulture made a 180-degree turn. Still, she was happy for him. And she couldn't help but be concerned if Bernard felt the same way. It was difficult to read him. Bonnie didn't seem bothered by that, so perhaps she shouldn't be either. What about you, Alicia? So I was spacing out. What? Do you play sports? We were talking about the job when fitness came up as a tangential topic. Alicia has never liked sports. Yes, I tire easily. How about you? I might not look like it, but I used to practice boxing back in school. In school? Yes, I participated in tournaments and competed against kids from other schools. Oh, you're all blessed. So I guess you went to one of those fancy institutions. Maybe Bonnie relates to that. She turned to a crocodile who shrugged. I used to take taekwondo lessons. Everyone in the family needed to learn personal defense. What's taekwondo? Oh, forget I said anything. Lisa raised an eyebrow and continued slurping her milkshake. Come to think of it, these two weren't so different. At least his first impression of Bernard was that he was very loyal to his duty, and that still held true, but now she saw him in a different light. He wasn't loyal to his department or his boss, but to his own definition of justice. Bonnie had a similar sense of self-determination, even if he didn't make it specifically about justice. Or was he? This thought didn't cross Alicia's mind, but there was another possibility. Bonnie lacked a drive of his own. He was drawn to people like Well and Bernard because they were the ones with a strong will. They were capable of giving him direction. Once Well parted ways with him, Bonnie became stagnant. Unhappy with his detective life, but unable to significantly change it. Bernard followed a strong set of values, and which became evident during their stay at the Abbey. Bonnie must have started finding his presence comforting. What's on your mind, Lisa? Something's distracting you, right? It's about those vacations you mentioned. The crocodile blinked and put his empty glass aside. I have a suggestion, but I suppose I could go along instead. It doesn't have to be your vacation. The crocodile adopted a lower tone. Bernardo leaned back, listening in silence. Is it about Lois? I know it's a long shot, but I want to go to Plato. Are you sure? For one, how could Lois possibly know this? Well, he shouldn't have known my father's name, but he did. I'm positive I never spoke about him. For that matter, how did he know we were related? It's one thing to know Dad, but to have my description On top of that, Buddy looked down and nodded. I can't deny that. Still, I got the feeling that this is a bad idea. It could be a trap, but Lloyd is locked up now, so I doubt it. If he has other people waiting for me there, well, I'll just need to lay low. I don't think he does. Then that's some more reason to go there. In worst case scenario, Lloyd was messing with me and I'll waste some time. If you go, we'll go with you. At least I found. Following me, but I'll look for him alone, alright? This will be a vacation for you. Easier said than done. Please, buddy. Bernardo cleared his throat. Excuse me, would you prefer if I leave for a moment? Just for a bit. The bearded vulture nodded and walked back into the building. Lisa faced Buddy, her features more relaxed now, although her voice still betrayed some tension. I can't take your time for you to help me, Buddy. The crocodile raised an eyebrow. Why is that? You like Bernardo, right? No response. Look, it's really obvious, and that's why I'm asking you to not get involved. I want to give you space to grow closer. I don't want you to have to worry about me anymore. Buddy opened his mouth as if he was about to shout at her, but stopped at the last second. Slowly, he turned his gaze towards the city, a melancholic look in his eyes. Buddy, it's still a bad idea. Do you really think Aloy's laid a trap for us there? Of course not. Then, I saw him skate the crocodile's nose. Looked much smaller than usual, deflated, but the grief was gone from his eyes. Instead, they reflected a silent warning. And Lisa, how much do you know about Will? Not that much. Nowadays, his face is what I remember the most. Me and David both took after Mom for the most part, so he was the only one that looked, well, like a dog. Has your mother told you anything about him? Have you heard about him from anywhere else? I only know what you told me. Mom didn't talk about him much after he vanished. Anyway, why are you asking this now? Hi. Buddy clasped his hands, deep in thought. We'll go there if Bernard agrees to go on that vacation with me. He'll go investigate alone in the meantime, but if I notice something's off, we're getting out of the city immediately, understand? I'm not getting a better deal, am I? This is final. Alright, deal. They called Bernard back shortly after. When asked, he said he'd be delighted to visit Plato. Finalizing playback. I've been wondering for some time now. What's that thing that appears when I watch Alicia? I say it as I glance at the time-out screen. What are you talking about? You watching too, right? That message displaying the time and the countdown. What do you think that is? I met with silence, so I turned back to the holographic screen and scrolled to the top of the timeline. I have a theory, but it has a fatal flaw. I proceed. We are already at some point after the Abbey murder case, so I figure we'll reach the date that is being counted down to August 31st in one of these next few records. I came up with the following possibilities for what will happen then. First, from Elisa's point of view, it would make sense if this was counting down to her meeting with her father. The second option is that it's counting down to Will enacting the plan to free Samuel. I think the second option is likely, as we know, Will will be making a move at the end of August. What bothers me is why would we see this countdown happen from Elisa's point of view? She knows nothing about the gatekeepers of their plan. That's why I came up with the first possibility since it made sense for her, but even then I went into a different problem. How will Elisa know that she will meet with Will at this time? It could be less of a countdown, more of a time limit, since Lois only told her that her friend would remain playthrough until then. That doesn't fit either because the countdown started days before she put her foot on Motorwaki at the latest. I'm surprised this is giving you so much trouble. I finally hear that sound like wood chipping. I'll hand it to you. Blindness was the last thing I expected from you. You mean to say I overlooked something? Yes, but come to think of it, perhaps it's my bad that I didn't see this coming. It makes sense you wouldn't know it's the truth. Why? Because you are you. I hear a mocking cackle somewhere in the back of my head. I turn away from the time end and attempt to collect my thoughts, but nothing makes sense in trying to decipher what Pi was applying on edge to the chaos. The shapes, lines, numbers, and letters are now intermingling and fusing together. So I mechanically select the next record. To be continued. If you're interested in this story so far, consider donating to my Ko-fi or Patreon page. It'll make the development process much smoother. Thank you for playing. Until next time. If you're playing the game on your own, you can select these as well. So we reached the end of build 10.2 of Nerus. The 11th build of Nerus is our way out. So I'll download that and we'll get started on that on the next time we come back to Nerus. So the countdown has something to do with Elisa and her father. Her father is going down to Plata to deliver a key, and he plans to free Samel. Now, Alois is trying to do the opposite. He's trying to keep Samel locked up. So if Samel gets freed, then that will endanger the planet. But Alois and Nock are trying to keep Samel locked up so the planet hopefully will not end up getting destroyed. So there's basically, apparently there's a big difference between what, well, at least his father is doing, what Alois and Nock are doing. So we'll have to wait until the next update comes out. Well, the update is already out, so I'll just go ahead and download it, and the next time we come to Nerus, we'll play it. So thank you all very much for watching. See you later.